Hey Daniel, this is Rob Fleming here with some feedback on your culture's perspective. It's good to see that you got some good work done here, and I'm going to respond to that. I think you might remember in the project handout, you're supposed to have two different schemes that you're going to compare. So send me a note on the update of when you think you're going to be able to have the second one. I'm kind of overgrown or overflowed with the grading, so you have some more time if you can get that in. So first off, some really interesting and good work here on the site plan. I kind of like the organic edge from an experiential point of view. And somehow you've managed to get a much bigger play area than many of the other people have done, which means I need to check your square footages. I think you're okay, but your building looks a little smaller than some of the other buildings. I'll need to check on that. From a site perspective, this is a little dicey. You're going to have cars kind of coming in and out and around and such. I would probably not do these spaces or just do that, have cars come in and come out. And then let's see, and then your main entrance is right here off of the buses. So it probably would help to kind of push your building down a little bit, and maybe this elevated learning space gateway could either not, maybe it's not a freestanding thing, or maybe it is. As this pushes down, it kind of gets too close to this. So, but this looks a little big, so maybe that's going to be okay. Um, so you've got your bus drop off, but you need to maintain a sidewalk, or so either you have to have it come in and drop off, or you have to maintain a place for the public to walk. I see you have a community entrance here and you have a main entrance there, which is nice for that, but on one level it creates double entry, which is it's a bit of a problem for a school. And as I'm being critical of your work, I'm really not being critical of you or your ideas. I think there's a lot of good work here. So just trying to help you get the building into a more functional way and try to think about how it relates to the site. And so I think there's some good stuff going on there. When I look at your building, one thing you want to try to do is draw the site in along with the outside so we can see the relationship. And one of the things that I'm going to want you to consider is going to a full two-story building. I think that your first floor is very cramped and you're not getting the benefit of a really nice lobby, although you have some things in the right place programmatically. I think there's a way to really jazz this up a little bit and not really add too much to the cost of the project. So one of the first things I would probably do is look at kind of cutting open. And by the way, you do not have to change this for this assignment. This is for you to learn about design. So it might be kind of nice to think about a way that when I come into the lobby, I can kind of see back through. And even then, then there's this chance, and then your admin space, you can see, can have a desk. This whole corner could be a desk that looks into that. And don't forget, you're going to need a good old fashioned vestibule, and you probably have double doors here, maybe. So I thought that so I think that by doing this, it's going to force you to create a larger second floor and move some of these classrooms up above. Now this stair here could work. It might be okay. However, once you expand the second floor, you might be able to do a stair that kind of, I don't know, maybe does something like this, or maybe it kind of peeks out into the beautiful view of the bridge. So maybe the stair comes out on an angle. So all kinds of cool things that can be done. I know that you have this element here, so I wonder if there's another element here that kind of picks up with that. And then maybe there's something going on at the entry that can pick up those same shapes. So you begin to get a language from the experiential point of view. You begin to get a sense of these elements that repeat. So this stair could move, and I'm going to talk about fire stairs in a minute and how that works. So first off, you have to have a doorway here because this is a dead end. Oh, and now I understand your public entry. So that kind of works pretty well. If this is being used by the public, they can go out here and use these restrooms. So that kind of works fine, I think. Here you have a dead end corridor, so you might want to have a door there to get out. And I think in general, it's always good to have the classrooms around the south side. Personally speaking, I might move the library. library is great here. It's getting an awful lot of solar exposure, and so you have to make sure, it looks like you did a lot of shading in your facade, so that works out well. I think that you combine these rooms, and that was a good way to make your program smaller. Let's ask Julie what she thinks about combining those two rooms. It may be that there's enough art and music classes running simultaneously that you can't do that. So we'll talk about that. Let me go up to the second floor. I'm going to show you you have some egress problems. So the current plan that you have a stair here. You'd have to have a stair over here in order to meet code. These classrooms are facing east, which is not desirable for a classroom. So, I mean, that gets back to my suggestion, and again, you do not have to do it for this, is to think about a real lobby space that then these classrooms can begin to find their way back in to here and here, which I think would be great. And I believe the gymatorium is open to below, but you could also begin to get your bathrooms stacked. These bathrooms want to stack up with the bathrooms that were on the ground floor. Mechanical room really would typically be in the basement. I would consider building a basement underneath a part of the building to get some of the mechanical out. You really wouldn't typically put mechanical there. Now that has a lot to do with whether you're doing geo-exchange, which you probably are out here, and so we'll talk more about mechanical rooms in a little bit. So now all of a sudden I've got this stair. I remember I tried to get you to move it to here. Now if you do it like that, if this is the end of your 2 stories, oops, let me go back. This could be the end of your 2 stories. Maybe your 2 stories ends here. Geez, sorry. Maybe your 2 stories ends here, and now you have room to get remember I was going to have you move a classroom up, so you're probably going to get another classroom here. And I do like, though, the way your project kind of steps down to the corner. I think organically speaking, I think that's pretty strong. And if you can finesse the geometry, I think that's pretty good. So that's pretty cool. So again, think about a staircase here. If this staircase is here, you're still going to need one down here somewhere. So you have to think about that. Since this is going to move back into the heart of the building here, you can begin to get maybe a fire stair tucked into here. So let's see how that affects your first floor. Well, it's going to change things a little bit. Your fire stair is going to end up here, and you're going to need to have this corridor kind of come to that and then going into the library that way. I'm sort of torn on the library on such a prominent corner, but I actually can't think of anything else that would make sense there. Typically you would not have an east light coming into that, so it's not a great street relationship from a cultural perspective, but as long as you're shading this, I think that it could be fine. The other thing I was thinking is you have your science, you don't have a science room. That's what it is. So some students, you're not the only one, didn't have a science room. Well, I would argue that you could actually build a science room right out here, out as a pavilion, and actually make it not part of the building so the kids could come out and get to that. And now that I have this great this lobby coming through here like this, or maybe it's out here on axes, or maybe it's another one of these curved forms. Could be kind of interesting to have this vocabulary of these curved elements that kind of repeat around the site in key locations. I think that would be pretty good. So I think that's why your building seems small and is not taking up so much of the site compared to other students. I would not be shy about bringing even a full second floor on here and really getting the breathing room that the building needs. Again, I wouldn't sacrifice this kind of cascading geometry. I think it's pretty good, and even in the way it's shown here, you may even have a couple different ceiling heights as this thing, I know that's a double height space, but maybe the ceiling heights shift a little bit to create some drama at that point. I see what's going on here. It's pretty interesting. Try to put the bridge in your 3D model if you can get the time. I know you're working full time. And then the idea of the pond over here is cool. Maybe there's a long, thin little greenhouse out here that could be for the science pavilion. Not quite sure. Again, this is all pretty funky and needs work. You're never really going to be able to get that to function. And now what happens is if we do something that cuts through like this, right? Maybe there's a different ceiling height here and there's some clear story light that comes in. So that all seems pretty reasonable. And I hope this feedback helps. Now what's going on here? You have a balcony. It's kind of weird that that is and that's there. I wonder if these could be linked somehow on a bridge. Remember I was trying to get you to pull this building down a little bit. I wonder if this could be somehow connected to this so you don't have this kind of little porch there. It looks like you got another doorway going there. Now with East Light, you know, these overhangs, these light shelves only do so much when it comes to East Light. In many cases you'll see the vertical shading that will be up along here, and what that does is as the sun comes around it catches the south light and protects it. So we're talking about something that's coming up higher, and I think, you know, remember there's a 4-story building right across the street, so it's not like you need to be low and long, and if anything it'd be kind of cool if you know, this was 3 stories, 2 stories, 1 story from a form point of view, but I think that would be a lot of wasted construction. And I think that, I guess, I don't know what software you're using for these. I think it's great that you have these, and there's some pretty cool looking, kind of some interesting looking window action going on there, which I think is pretty good. These look a little tight for clear stories. I mean, you might want to bump this building up a little bit so those clear stories could be at least 2 feet if they're not already 2 feet. And again, you wouldn't do this normally facing west. You really wouldn't have a window facing west for a library. So you would just cover that right up. And actually, these are really questionable from an exposure to solar, because that's also facing a lot towards the west. But mainly, what happens here is I'm trying to get you to think about doing something magical here with this really cool staircase. Maybe it's a round staircase that comes out and starts to look out into the space. So every day when the kids go up and down the stairs, they get this amazing view out onto the site, and they really get a nice feeling. So your building's a little small. You have an art music combined room, and you didn't have a science room, so it gives you more site space that you'll probably have to deal with. Given that, I'd really like to think about a way to get this parking situation figured out, and I don't really know how to do it off the top of my head, and it doesn't have to be figured out for this scheme. Now I hope that I get to see a second scheme from you, so you'll be able to compare 2 projects. In any case, I think that the work you've done here is good, and I hope that these comments were helpful to you.